to Co-Opinions. My name is Josh, and today is part one of a very special series that my co-host Brent has been very excited about for a long time. Brent, why don't you go ahead and tell us what we're going to be talking about for the next 3 episodes?
We are going to be talking about Metal Gear Solid.
This is perhaps one of Brent's favorite series that he plays. So ever since I told him I was interested in playing Metal Gear Solid 5, he goes, we have to do this. And at this point, I beat that game close to 6 months ago-ish? It's been a while. So you've been chomping at the bit for this for quite a while. But before we launch into part 1 of 3, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you've been playing over the long hiatus?
So since our season hiatus, I think the last time I was playing Banjo-Tooie, but I also think that was the episode we didn't air. So I was playing Banjo-Tooie.
Way to date the episode, by the way.
What?
Anyways, keep moving.
Banjo-Tooie. Then I went from that to Twilight Princess HD, which I cannot wait to get into our Zelda conversation.
3D Zelda, I'm curious how we're going to approach that, because since then, Breath of the Wild has come out, and I'm not 100% sure if we should play that before we have this discussion, but that's neither here nor there.
It is not. After that, I hit Star Fox Zero, which I've since played cooperatively with you as well. If I had to give a review on that one, having played it both single player and cooperatively, if you're looking for difficulty, single player is the way to go. Cooperatively, much easier.
Yeah, I definitely, if I had to give a brief, quick overview on that, I would say play it with another person. It was much more enjoyable than I imagined in solo. But you got anything else? Because we got a rich, full...
Yeah, I'll wrap up what I beat in 2016 at this point. Then after that, I hit Guard. After that, we hit Gears of War 4.
Ooh, we need to talk about that at some point. In fact, I might give a brief overview of that before the start of the next part of this series.
Got it. And then the last game I tried to knock out that year, but I didn't get it until third day of 2017, was Homeworld Deserts of Karak.
But that's something you'll touch on as we get further into this series. Wonderful. Myself, I haven't been playing a ton of stuff because, as I said, I've had to shift my priorities a little bit off gaming for a little while. So anytime I have downtime, I wrapped up Resident Evil 7 since the last time we recorded. That was super good, even though it has an odd tonal shift near the end. Unfortunately, I can't talk about it with you because you plan on playing it.
Or at least, maybe.
Maybe watching me play through it. Or I also am doing post-game stuff in Final Fantasy 15, which is not as easy as you would imagine, post-game stuff. But it's not unenjoyable. I am having fun fishing and killing stuff. So what can you do?
Who doesn't enjoy virtual fishing?
Yeah, exactly. So much fun. And I caught a 4-foot, 400-pound fish or something. Oh, yeah, it was a beast. But
how do you catch that?
It took me about 15 minutes. Yeah.
All right.
Sounds about right. But let's go ahead and launch into it.
All right.
We were going to, just as a quick brief overview, in part 1, we are going to be attempting to tackle the general plot of the first 2 Metal Gear games.
Yes.
And then we're going to get more in depth on the first 2 Metal Gear Solid games.
Yeah.
So, Brent, why don't you take us away?
Okay. Before we start, I got several prefaces. First, I got to apologize to Mike for having to sit through 3 hours of Metal Gear Solid.
Mike is actually going to appreciate that. Shout out to our editor. What?
Second preface, games we will not be touching on. We're only going to do the canonical games.
Okay.
So we're not going to be touching the Metal Gear Acid games or any of the, how do you classify the VR missions, subsistence?
Yeah, but those are basically just add-on content to existing.
That could basically be their own topic.
They could be their own topic, but they don't have plot, do they?
I mean, you can replay the games.
Yeah, but it just expands on. Okay.
I don't know. Does the monkey ball thing?
The monkey ball thing is a minigame, which, while hilarious, is a minigame in Metal Gear Solid 3, emphasis on minigame.
It is.
So, any additional...
the last thing, and I will say this plot is insane.
Oh, yeah, this Plot is absolutely crazy. We acknowledge that. Don't think that we're taking this overwhelmingly seriously. So, the parameters as we've laid out. Sorry, Mike.
Yes.
We are only touching on the canonical games, and last but not least, this is insane.
Yeah.
And with that note, let us hit part 1 of our 3-part Metal Gear Solid series.
And this is the part where you play the Metal Gear Solid theme if you're good at what you do, and if you can do it. Yes. I'll be really happy, and if you can't, then I'm giving my judgment.
Okay.
So one way or another. Deep breath as I read the 3 paragraphs I've written. So, Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear 1.
And this was originally released on the Nintendo in the late
Famicom?
80s? Well, yeah.
Yeah, 1985?
Yes. No way. Okay, you read the plot. I'm going to look up when it was actually released.
So, okay, Metal Gear 1 is set in the futuristic year of 1995. And yes, I'm going to do that for every one of these that was in the future when they came out. Solid Snake, a Black Ops rookie who looks shockingly like Kurt Russell from Escape from New York.
It just happens to be named Snake as well.
Yeah, right? Is set into a fortified state known as Outer Heaven, just north of Glasberg, South Africa, by his commanding officer, Big Boss. This happens after contact with a previous Black Ops operative. Gray Fox is lost when he sends off a mysterious message consisting of only 2 words, Metal Gear.
Metal Gear was released the day before I was born.
Okay, I was 2 years off.
Right? 1987, by the way. It was released in July of 1987. I'm not giving you guys the exact date, because I like a little mystery in my life. But we've gotten the backstory of the first game. So what happens next, Brett?
Snake then goes in, finds the local resistance who helps him rescue Gray Fox. Gray Fox tells him that he needs to rescue the scientist to build the Metal Gear. That he rescues that scientist and his daughter, who tells him how to take out the Metal Gear. He then infiltrates the base, who then encounters a ton of elite soldiers, because you gotta have boss battles in these things.
Obviously.
As he makes his way through, he takes out the Metal Gear and then discovers that the mercenary who founded Outer Heaven was, of course, Big Boss.
Whoa, spoilers for a 30-year-old game.
Right. Who had been acting weird right up until that point.
Are you saying he wasn't acting like Big Boss?
So, fun note, kind of like the Psycho Mantis thing.
Quick side note, because of the way we're approaching this, there will be many spoilers.
Yeah.
There will be all the spoilers.
So if you've never played any of these games besides Metal Gear Solid 5 that all came out less than 10 years ago at this point, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but go ahead. Sorry, Psycho Mantis.
Like the Psycho Mantis fight, apparently at some point in the original Metal Gear, since neither of us have played it, Big Boss will actually tell you to shut off the system.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. That happened in Metal Gear Solid 2, actually. Colonel Campbell.
He does the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
After he defeats Snake, after Snake defeats Big Boss dies, and the UN retconned bombs the facility to destroy it. Because in the original one, in the actual ending, it says that a self-destruct goes off, but apparently every game says post that it was the UN bombing it, because that didn't make any sense.
Okay. So that's Metal Gear 1, where he finds out the Big Boss was actually the bad guy, and he destroys the first Metal Gear.
Yes.
That is the big plot. It still had some stealth emphasis. You did
it brought stealth into gameplay. It was a big...
It did, but there were graphical and gameplay I have played it.
Have you played it?
I have played it.
I tried to play it when it came with the Subsistence release of Metal Gear Solid 3. Not easy for me.
That's the thing. In a game where the direction matters, I mean, they turn around 3 times and go, "I'm feel asleep." Z. I mean,
your base are
it was incredibly ambitious at the time. I cannot evaluate it within the context of 1987 because, like I said, this came out a day before I was born.
I was not conceived yet, so...
Right. Well, no, I think you would have been conceived.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe just barely.
Yeah.
Neither here nor there.
Okay. So
into Metal Gear 2.
Metal Gear 2. So...
Important detail.
Preface on Metal Gear 2. The Metal Gear 2 we are covering is the Japanese canonical one because a lot like Mario 2 for the Nintendo, the American release was not the real one. They just made one for the American release because of trouble porting and localizing stuff.
Okay, so Metal Gear was too difficult to port and localize. Metal Gear 2 was too difficult to port and localize. So they made their own version. It was called like Snake's Revenge, wasn't it?
And it has, nothing to do with the rest of,
Okay.
other than Solid Snake. No one in it is.
Okay, so, and an important detail about this was not playable in America until the release of MGS3?
Yeah, Subsistence. Yes.
Okay. And it was bundled in with that, unless I'm wrong.
Yeah, it was on the extras disc with
Wonderful.
Metal Gear 1.
So why don't you tell us what happened in that game?
Okay. Set again in the futuristic year of 1999, 4 years after the event of the first one, a scientist named Dr. Keo Marv has discovered a new form of fuel that's made from algae. He is kidnapped at a conference by a group of people from a place known as Zanzibar Land in Central Asia.
What kind of names were these, by the way? They could not have... So Outer Heaven, that has aged well. Zanzibar
Not so
Land,
much.
that sounds like a racist theme park.
Especially because when I was reading up on it, where it is jumps around immensely. Like, where they say it is like where Mongolia is, and where other things say it is, it's like almost in the middle of the Middle East.
None of them are Zanzibar, though.
No.
Okay, cool. Continue.
Established in 1997, the leader intends to hold the Doctor hostage, and the new Foxhound leader, Roy Campbell, sends Solid Snake in to save the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
He goes in, he teams up with a CIA agent who is undercover, a STB agent, and a Dr. Marv's bodyguard. After he again fights a, group of elite soldiers, because again, you need boss battles, he encounters the new Metal Gear D, and discovers that the pilot is none other than Gray Fox.
Dun, dun, dun. And he died in the first game, right?
No, he did not. We're getting to that.
Okay.
After he destroys the Metal Gear, Gray Fox tracks Snake down. They have another fight in the middle of a minefield where Gray Fox dies, with quotation marks.
I'm about to say, they can't see air quotes. But go ahead.
But I gave them there.
Okay.
There we go. After Snake defeats Gray Fox, he moves on to discover that the leader of the country is none other than Big Boss, because
Who
that's how the
died.
series works.
Right. Who died in Metal Gear 1.
He fights Big Boss, having to come up with procured methods because he has no weapons on him, so he uses like a flamethrower and a lighter and an aerosol can to make a flamethrower, because that's how this works.
So they were rolling from the beginning with the ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Great.
And then possibly Big Boss dies, because it's
He Disney dies,
Yeah.
doesn't he? They
Yeah.
don't actually see him die, as
No.
opposed to the other one. He was in a ginormous explosion. Yeah. Okay. So from that, was there any notable... We never had the chance to really play it prior to 2006 with Subsistence. Did you ever even crack the case on this
No.
one? Okay. I don't know what significant improvements that this game may have potentially brought.
I read it added some new stealth elements. It improved upon the elements that were already there.
So you could actually see which way people were facing. It also appears that there were infrared sensors and cameras. So it looks like it laid a lot of groundwork for what they would eventually implement in Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, are you comfortable moving away from Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake to Metal Gear Solid 1?
Yep.
Now, this game was a landmark game for a lot of reasons. It is known as the precursor to stealth games.
Oh, yeah.
So, what did this come out in, 96?
Yes. Hang on, I have it right here. 98.
Dang it. So, it came out in 98. It was played from a third-person perspective, generally overhead, and the goal was to try and achieve your objective without being spotted or ideally killing anybody.
Yeah.
That was the big thing. Don't be spotted, don't kill anybody.
And while we're covering Metal Gear Solid, we'll also, years later, in 2005, they released a updated, probably what would be considered one of the first HD remakes, Twin Snakes.
Well, and we could get into that, but that was, at the time, nobody thought it was, well, they thought it was a huge deal.
Yeah.
And it had the same general look as MGS2.
The plot is, with the exception of some dialogue changes and the Psycho Mantis fight and some basic, little Easter eggs, like I think instead of a Crash Bandicoot doll, there's Mario riding Yoshi doll on top of a computer. Right. There's really no differences besides they implemented everything from Metal Gear Solid 2.
Including first-person mode, which some people said caused issues, but we'll get on to that later. So, Metal Gear Solid, Snake is called in, what? It's because the terrorist group known as...
So, again, this game is set in the futuristic year 2005, 6 years after Metal Gear 2. He's arrested, brought in because Foxhound, his former unit, now led by Liquid Snake, has taken over a base in the Fox Archipelago of Alaska called Shadow Moses, where they are building something. Roy Campbell asks him to go in because his niece, Meryl Silvermane, is being kept hostage along with the DARPA chief and the head of the arms tech.
The old white guy. Yeah.
So they're all being held hostage by Foxhound, who will use the Metal Gear Rex to launch a nuclear missile, because every game needs a Metal Gear and apparently a nuclear missile.
Right.
If they don't get so much money and the corpse of Big Boss, which is apparently something everyone wants, the dead corpse of a dude, because he is the best soldier ever.
Now, later it makes a little more sense why they want his corpse, but at the time, at the beginning, this is a really odd thing to bring up.
It is, but it's also because every soldier there is a genome soldier who's been enhanced with the soldier genes of Big Boss.
Now, this is important because the first games might have had some silly details, but this game starts really going off the rails, and we're going to touch on it as we progress through the interesting characters that you interact with.
Yeah.
Now, at the beginning of the game, one of the first things they introduce you to is Liquid Snake taking off in the Hind D helicopter. And it's at that point, right, that you notice his face is identical to your face. Your face being Solid Snake. And that's your hint that something is sinister. Though, to be fair, on the PS1, that just meant your eyeshadows were in the same place.
It's a little easier to see in the Twin Snakes version.
Right.
Then you stealth your way around a bunch of soldiers, make your way into the facility where
you get backup. You get a backup call from Master Miller, who is somebody who had not been introduced in the previous games.
No, he had. I forgot to mention him from at least Solid Snake from MG2. Sorry,
okay, so that's
my mistake.
That's why we wouldn't have known him, though, because normal people who played it never would have played Metal Gear 2.
He is Solid Snake's mentor trainer.
Right.
Yeah. He is there to provide you backup, along with, of course, Colonel Campbell, Naomi Hunter, who is the doctor who's on team to help you with stuff.
She gives you a lot of medical-related feedback. She injected you with nanomachines for some reason, right?
Well, she's the one who injected you with the thing that allows you to do the codex.
Okay.
And then other things that we'll get into, the nanomachines.
So did I accidentally bury the lead on that one?
I don't know. At this point, are you listening to this and you've never played the original Metal Gear?
I mean, as soon as you say nanomachines, people already know what they're in for.
Yeah. So also the Colonel's at Mei Ling.
Yeah, but she's unusually underutilized.
She
use her to save?
Yeah, she's the save. And then Natasha. Hang on.
I don't remember a Natasha.
Yeah, her name's Natasha. Hang on. Natasha Romanico. That's because she's so underutilized. She becomes a secondary behind-the-scenes character after the first one.
At all.
She's there to help you with the nuclear bomb thing. Basically, you take photos, and she tells you if you can, shoot around them.
Got it.
Right? Oh, and the other thing about the nanomachines is that to prevent you from just taking guns off dead bodies, because you couldn't do that in that level of a system, everyone had their guns
DNA locked or something. Okay.
So this sounds weird, but there are people proposing that in real life now.
Yeah, so maybe it was unusually ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Weird.
So anyways, after Snake gets into the facility, he stealths his way to the DARPA chief, Donald Anderson.
Now, you wouldn't think this guy matters, but put a pin in it, because believe it or not, we're coming back to old Donnie.
Yep. So after Donald tells him that there is a key to help deactivate the Metal Gear Rex...
Is it to deactivate the Rex or deactivate the nukes? I think it was to deactivate the nukes.
Deactivate both the nuke and the Rex. They're override codes. He then suddenly dies of a heart attack.
Now, that is... he graphically dies of a heart attack.
It is quick and fast.
And painful.
Yeah.
And...
So after that happens, soldiers start to surround the cell because they hear the commotion, and in the cell next to him is Meryl.
All right, and that was one of those scenes as a child, I remember, if you go back and forth over her cell enough, eventually she's doing crunches.
Yeah.
And eventually she'll do them without pants. Or she'll either start doing them without pants, and if you get to her fast enough, she'll do the next scene where you bust her out. You come up to her and she won't be wearing pants.
Yeah, okay, I do remember that part. So she helps Snake escape the cell. She disguises herself as a soldier, and she gets away. Now, Snake does make his way down and finds the Arms Tech president, Kenneth Baker.
Oh, yeah, the old white guy.
The old white guy who is wrapped around a cement support beam, and that is where you encounter the first boss battle, Revolver Ocelot.
Now, this helps set the pace for the game, because the bosses in this, you would almost say the main draw, besides the crazy story and the really good stealth gameplay for the most part, crazy characters. And the bosses are no exception. So, what was Revolver Ocelot's big thing?
Besides the fact that he used revolvers. So he ricocheted bullets off the wall at you.
Yes.
That sucked.
It did suck, and he had very suggestive dialogue while he was loading his gun.
Yeah, I remember that now.
That was gross.
So as you're taking him down, right before you beat him, suddenly who is the cyborg ninja jumps into the room and cuts his right hand off.
Now, this is also a crucial detail for the rest of the series.
Yeah. Yes, put a pin in the fact that Revolver Ocelot loses his right hand.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the ninja jumps in, cuts off his hand, vanishes.
And this is another one of those insane characters.
Yeah, and then Ocelot lumbers off, bleeding without a hand. And you save the Arms Tech president, who then tells you that there is a key to deactivate all the stuff that Donald Anderson was talking about, and Meryl has it. So you have to find Meryl and get the key.
And doesn't he graphically suddenly and painfully
die? He also
die?
then suddenly dies of a heart attack.
In the exact same way that the DARPA chief did.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, you talk to the colonel, who then suddenly has more information you're curious about, but you don't have time to talk to him. So you then contact Meryl over Codex.
Now, this part I think is important, because this was one of the things that I thought was really, really awesome as a fourth wall break. Because Colonel Campbell says you have to look up the frequency on the back of the box. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You have to look on the back of the game case to see where the screenshot is of Snake contacting Meryl to find the frequency. That was crazy. Now, it wasn't the first time it'd been done, because in actually the podcast we had to scrap, there was a game that it had the mechanic on Nintendo and Star Tropics where you had to go external to the game to find the code, which even then, super clever. Here, super clever. You rented the game, you were out of luck.
So you contact Meryl. She tells you that to meet her in the she'll meet you in the disposal area for the nukes on one condition, that you have to go and find Hal Emmerich. While you're en route to find him, you then encounter Vulcan Raven in the tank, the second boss battle.
Okay, I forgot about that one. Now, this was one of the gameplay elements that this was not a fun fight.
No, in the original one, it is a pain trying to lob the grenades into the tank's opening.
And this was one of the boss battles that people said got quote-unquote ruined with the first-person perspective.
In Twin Snakes, yeah.
Because it made it too easy, I think they said.
They said Revolver was ruined by it. This one, yeah, because you could see, but you still had to launch the grenades in third person, I think, in Twin Snakes. But it was definitely easier because you could shoot him instead of having to do it in third person.
Got it.
Now, before you say that, you can look in first person in Metal Gear Solid, the PlayStation, but you just can't shoot.
Got it. So this, out of all the boss fights in this game, to me, this was the most unassuming one.
Yeah. It was difficult only because it was hard to do. It wasn't like it was a real...
There was nothing particularly exciting or interesting about it, except it was in a minefield.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was in the minefield. Yes, it was. So, yeah, after you defeat the tank, and he goes off after making some comments about you being slightly Asian.
Yeah.
Raven is, of course...
He's
Inuit?
an Eskimo.
Yes. He is Inuit.
So after you defeat Vulcan Raven, you go to try and find Meryl.
You go to find Otacon. You find him in his place, where you then encounter this Cyborg Ninja once again.
And this
killing
is
him. This is probably one of the most brutal cinemas because he is hacking up like a hallway full of soldiers.
Oh, yeah, no, there's murdered guys everywhere, and I'd almost forgot about that. It's incredibly graphic, something you weren't expecting to see, at least I wasn't expecting to see at that point. And then you have to go fight him.
Yeah.
Which this again drives home one of those this is insane moments because how do you have to fight him, Brent? It has to be hand to hand. He will block you can bust out a machine gun and he starts doing the wah 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 with his sword and deflects everything and it's ridiculous. So you have to do it hand to hand. And is at this point you get an inclination of who he really is?
Yeah, he says something. I don't remember what it is because it's been long enough and I can't find without reading some huge synopsis on the game what he says.
But you get an inkling that he used to know Snake. But after that point, you're introduced to Hal Emmerich, who is a huge nerd but ends up being helpful. He's known as Otacon.
Yeah, he then agrees to help Snake using the weird stealth cloak thing that also the Cyborg Ninja is using.
Right.
Snake then goes and finds Meryl. She gives him the car, but just as they're about to do something, Meryl starts shooting at him, and then we get into the Psycho Mantis fight.
This is consistently rated as one of the best boss fights of all time. Even out of the context of 1998, you said it came out?
Yeah.
Even outside of that, this is one of the most unique boss fights ever.
Yeah, we got to touch on this one.
We absolutely have to touch on this. Go ahead.
So, and this is where the only slight differences between Twin Snakes and the original one come in is that both dialogue is created for your memory card. He'll start reading your memory card and saying things based off certain games, like if there are certain Konami games, certain PlayStation games, or in the context of the GameCube, certain GameCube Nintendo games.
He's like, I see you like to play Smash Brothers, or I see you like to play some Castle Symphony of the Night.
Yeah.
And at the time, this blew our minds. Like, how does he know?
And then to beat him, like, you have to switch the controller between different ports.
Because if you don't do that, none of your attacks will hit. He'll just keep dodging. Eventually, Colonel Campbell will say, you have to switch to port 2. What are you talking about? And this is really genius because it doesn't work in controller port 2 for any other part of the game.
Right.
They enable it for only this point. And when you do that, Psycho Mantis says, why can't I read your thoughts? It's really clever. I mean, I'm even now, 20 years later, this is really, really clever.
God, it's one of the best parts of the game. So after that fight, and you beat him and kill him, he then also dies of a heart attack because...
We're starting to see a pattern here.
So you then go to find Meryl, who is wounded in the middle... Oh, you were walking with Meryl, then she gets shot and wounded. You have to take cover because you now encountered Sniper Wolf.
Yet another one of the wacky bunch.
And depending on if you have the card or not, you can at this point have the sniper rifle, but more than likely with most people, like myself, you have to go back and get it.
Gotta go grab the sniper rifle, leaving Meryl behind. And when you come back to confront Sniper Wolf, Meryl is no longer laying there.
You then stop Sniper Wolf, but after you reach the passage, you get knocked out.
This is another crucial scene, right? We're coming up to the torture scene?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're taken in front of Liquid, Ocelot, and that's...
You deal with Liquid and Ocelot, and you get the choice whether or not to resist or submit. This is crucial because the game has two endings dependent on what you choose here. Yeah. Now, in between the torture sessions... Am I mowing your lawn here?
No, you're good. In between the torture sessions, you're put into a cell where you discover the dead body of Donald Anderson.
But it's way deader than you remember.
Yeah.
Is this when you actually find out that it wasn't the DARPA chief who died? Is this when you find it out?
No, you find it out later, but I feel like we can say it.
We can go ahead and go now. So you find out that the guy who died before was actually another crazy person called Decoy Octopus, who apparently was so good at emulating other people that he shaved his cheekbones down and changed his pigment color. And this was a weird inclusion for me.
Yeah.
Like, I know why they did it, but it's odd.
Yeah.
In between, so are we going to talk about just busting out now?
Well, so if you submit...
He electrocutes you. You have to tap a button to keep yourself from dying. You have to keep going.
If you do, you get the non-canonical ending where Meryl dies.
At the end.
If you don't, then you get the real one where she survives.
Correct.
So, yeah. After that, we have to point out Johnny because he is a recurring staple
we do have
every game. And this is one of the key points with him because Real fast, you can either... He goes to the bathroom. Now, this is the point where you have the catch-up. You can either hide underneath the bed and make it look like you escaped and he'll run in and freak out, or you can put the catch-up on you, and the first time he'll legit think that you shot yourself or something, and he thinks you're dead, and he'll run in and freak out.
So this was interesting because another way you can get out, and I never did this, I read about it, if you get tortured so many times, eventually Cyborg Ninja will just show up and cut the panel. Like, he'll just let you out. But you have to get tortured like 7 times.
Yeah.
It's an enormous amount. So I thought it was really clever how they had multiple ways you could escape from this room. And they also idiot-proofed it because apparently some people were just truly that ignorant.
So after you escape, you then have to fight the Hind D.
Is that when you fight the Hind?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and this is just another...
It's a helicopter battle where you have to use a
missile launcher.
So you fight the Hind D. Then after you do that, you confront Sniper Wolf for the last time.
Now this is a super cool fight.
Yeah.
Because this is a sniper fight in a game that traditionally had been focusing heavily on stealth and at times gunplay.
Yeah.
This you actually had to scope out the lay of the land. You couldn't rush. And you had to take very deliberate shots, which really awesome pacing on this particular fight. In fact, it set the stage for a very similar fight a couple games down the line, but we'll get to that later. And after she dies, which is a bummer because there's a lot of really sad backstory for her, isn't there?
Yeah.
We won't get too into it.
But when
it's
she
sad.
dies, then all the wolves come. It gets really depressing.
And then you find out Hal was super into her, apparently.
Yeah.
But whatever.
So then...
Keep moving forward.
So you beat her, you run to the Rex hangar. That's when you run into Raven one more time.
This is an interesting fight, not because it's mechanically interesting, but because Vulcan Raven himself is an unusual character.
Yeah.
He's walking around holding a minigun in a Sub-Zero freezer, and he mentioned something about being able to see. It's really weird because he's got a lot of mysticism going on somehow.
Yeah. Like, when you finally beat him and he dies, like, all those ravens fly in and, like, rapidly eat him.
Yeah, he
and
just
all that's left is the minigun.
Yeah, it's bizarre. But from there...
Around that time is when you find out that Master Miller is dead. He was replaced with Liquid Snake.
So the guy you've been talking to this whole game is actually Liquid Snake, which is one of the original big twists.
Yeah, it's Liquid Snake. At the exact same time, the Secretary of Defense, I believe it is, after you beat Vulcan Raven, you head into the thing to discover you have to take the key card to deactivate it, but it has to be you have to have 3 different cards, and you discover that the way you get 3 different cards is you have to change the temperature of the key card.
Now, this was another really novel approach because they go, well, we have 1 card, but how are we supposed to make it into 3 cards? They go, oh, it has to be really cold and really hot. So
you have to run into the really hot room, which I forgot what that was.
It's like a boiler room.
Yeah. And then you have to run into the cold room where you fought Vulcan Raven.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, you head back in, you get to the Rex. That's when you encounter Liquid, and you discover that both of you are clones of Big Boss.
So I want to say one thing that really, really shocked me. When I was younger, you go through to put all these key cards in to deactivate everything, but you'd been bamboozled, and you actually activated everything.
Oh, right. You activate it.
You now have to throw down with Liquid Snake so that way you can stop him from launching the Metal Gear Rex.
So after you have to do that. But first you fight the Rex, and then while you're fighting it, Cyborg Ninja shows up to help you try and defeat it.
This is when you find out who he definitively is,
right? You know he's Gray Fox. You find out Naomi Hunter is his sister. She and she was doing everything she was doing because she was pissed off at Solid Snake for killing her brother. She injected you with the Fox dye, which is what's
causing everybody to have
killed everyone at this one point, which is a nanovirus thing.
Yeah, we fully accept how ridiculous all of this is.
So while you're fighting Liquid Snake, you and Cyborg Ninja, he helps you defeat the Rex, and Liquid's pissed off. At this point, you wake up, you discover Meryl is still alive if you did the right way. You're contacted by the Secretary of Defense, who's arrested everyone on the submarine that Colonel Campbell is on and is taking over because he's going to bomb you guys into oblivion because you're some mistake from the 1970s that needs to go away.
And at this point, they decide we're not just quite done with all the craziness here. So you have a fist fight with Liquid on top of the ruins of the Metal Gear Rex, and he talks about how you're both clones of Big Boss.
But he's the superior clone, and you are the...
No, he says he's the inferior clone.
I thought he was next to convince.
He says he's the inferior clone, and how he hates his big brother because he got all the good genes. That's...
Right. Okay.
Oh my god. Just saying this out loud.
I was going to say, I feel like if Nick was here, he'd be having an aneurysm.
I'm almost having an aneurysm. Like, this is just absolute insanity. But you defeat Liquid in the hand-to-hand combat, and you're escaping from the base, and there's a Jeep fight where Liquid's not really dead, and he's shooting at you from the machine gun, and you get outside.
And just as he's about to shoot you, he dies of a heart attack.
He dies of Fox Die too. So the invisible thing hanging over your head now was, well, I have it in me. Why haven't I died?
And Naomi tells him that she doesn't know when he's going to die, and you ride off into the sunset on a snowmobile with Meryl.
Unless she died, then it's Hank. Then it's
Emmerich. Alan Emmerich. Yeah. I mean, I like the first Metal Gear. The story's alright. I think if I had to rate them, the first one's probably my second favorite.
The first one I liked a lot. I liked it a ton, and I played it close to when it came out. I loved it back then. It was great at the time. And I would say it's aged decently well, except, early-ish PS1 game. There are limitations.
I mean... For full disclosure, I didn't beat the full story of the original one until Twin Snakes.
You suck.
So,
I enjoyed it a lot. I can't tell you how many times I beat it. I got both endings. I played through it with the items. It was really, really interesting. I know you played it on a lot of harder difficulties.
Yes, I did.
And it introduced me to the idea of stealth gameplay, but the third-person stealth gameplay never really meshed with me at the time.
No.
But it got better as time went on. But let's take this opportunity to go ahead and launch into the second game, because the first game, tremendous impact on the entire industry. Like we said, one of the first precursors to big stealth games. And there's other ones.
And the cinemas and everything else. There was a ton of reasons
why
it did.
A lot of really interesting approaches that put the franchise as a significant step on the map. But the second game had a lot of interesting decisions they made because of that.
And this is another... So we're going to talk about that because the main character changes halfway through. But we're also going to put a pin in that because that's something I want to talk about again in the third part.
Ooh.
We'll talk
about
it. Okay. But no, we're still going to talk about it, but I want to come back to it.
Got it.
So anyways, Metal Gear Solid 2. It starts up again in the futuristic year of 2007, set 2 years after the event of what is known as the Shadow Moses incident, or Metal Gear Solid 1. Solid Snake and Otacon are now part of a non-government a philanthropy group designed to stop the development of new Metal Gears.
Okay.
With the Natasha woman, and Mei Ling, I think, helps them.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's the one who gives them the information about the Navy's Metal Gear Ray and why they're on the tanker. So after you jump off the George Washington Bridge at the beginning of the cinema to great music, Metal Gear Solid 2 was the start of great music for the Metal Gear series. Yeah, that's got to be pointed out.
Yeah, that's where the iconic MGS theme to me comes from. But we can sum up the tanker. I'm not trying to rush this, but like two things happen.
Well, you got to point out. You got to point out several things besides the fact that it's probably 2/5 of the game at best.
I wouldn't even say it was that much.
So after you're on board, Ocelot shows up, who now has 2 hands. That's important.
Yeah. He
has 2 hands. He arrives with a bunch of his old Soviet friends. Colonel, I cannot remember how to say this, Grolokovich, and his daughter, who is important. So after you have a fight with her at the top, Olga, yeah.
Olga.
At the top on the bridge, you knock her out, so she's unconscious. You go into the bowels of the ship to get images of Metal Gear Ray while they're doing their weird calisthenics.
Now that was, but it was impressive because if you this game was early enough in the PS2 that this was a big selling point for a lot of people for the PS2.
Well, it demonstrated the PS2, yeah.
Right. But what was more impressive to me was how you had to have situational awareness at that point, because you could walk in front of the projector. And then
I did that once
the 200 people doing it. Yeah, everybody got the alert. But you're going through and getting all the information. Oh, go ahead.
But if you sit there and just wait, like, multiple times during his speech, he's like, let's all take a moment to stretch.
Yeah.
Turn to your right, turn to your left. Like, what is that?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But you're going through, you're getting the information, you're getting the pictures.
You're doing it, and then the Russians bust in, take the Navy commander hostage, and then Revolver turns on the colonel, and Ocelot just blows his brains out.
And is it this point he reveals he's part of the Lalelulelo?
Yes, he says something about Lalelulelo to
it's ridiculous.
The Navy commander, who then has a shocked look on his face.
Dun, dun,
and
dun.
just as he's about to steal the ray and kill the guy, Solid Snake jumps out, and then the arm acts weird.
And then apparently, much like Idle Hands, it turns out that this arm can possess Revolver Ocelot with the spirit of Liquid Snake. Because, surprise, the hand is from Liquid Snake. And it contains his spirit that will now continue to take over Revolver for an undisclosed amount of time.
Which put pins in all of these, because we will be back to them too later on.
Oh, they touch on a lot of this stuff. But that's the end of the...
Well, then he takes off in the ray, the tanker
He
sinks.
being Revolver Ocelot.
Yeah, Ocelot takes off in the ray. The tanker sinks, and Snake gets blamed for it and is assumed dead. Jump ahead 2 years to the main game.
Now, this was something people were not expecting and or looking forward to.
To the partial defense, the trailers, and I learned this later on, the trailers did actually depict Snake in every scene that Raiden is in. So, Raiden is the main character of the game. He is sent on a mission.
The big shell part, that's what this second one is called.
This is the big shell. The plant chapter is what it is in the main game. Anyways, he's sent to the big shell because the president was... This big shell was set up to clear the oil spill from the tanker that sank. They go in, and the president's there for reasons I don't actually remember, and a terrorist group takes over and takes them all hostage.
And again, we're back to a bunch of weird dudes.
And the leader claims to be Solid Snake, and part of them are an anti-terror unit that was once known as Dead Cell, and they're there to destroy the facility.
And don't act like you're supposed to know what a lot of this means.
No, at this point, you're as confused as everyone else. As the player, you have no idea what's going on.
Right.
As you're getting there, trying to figure out what's going on, you suddenly see 2 SEAL teams are there. They're about to take on Vamp and Fortune.
Now, these are characters from Dead Cell.
Yeah.
This is introducing the wackiness, much like in the first game, how you had the psychic who could control other people, and you had the Eskimo guy with a minigun. Now they've introduced Vamp, who is a...
vampire.
Yeah. There's really... and then
Put a pin in that one, too.
Yeah. He'll be back. And Fortune, who seemingly cannot be killed and has a giant gun.
Bullets deflect around her.
Right.
And the the ex-Russian soldiers that make up their militia, they're all led by Olga. You watch the SEAL Team 10 get killed.
They get annihilated, don't they?
They get destroyed. So if you do that, you run into the bomb disposal guy from the NYPD, Peter Stillman, who is
joined. And he is known as Fat Man now. Am I? No, I'm.
No, you're thinking Fat Man is the Dead Cell guy, who's the crazy bomber.
Okay, go ahead.
But with him is Iroquois Pliskin. Shockingly looks like Solid Snake, who shockingly again looks like Kurt Russell from Escape from New York, who was named Snake Plissken.
I was about to say, instead of being Solid Snake or Snake Plissken, he is Iroquois Pliskin. Yeah, cool. Continue.
So Pliskin says a whole bunch of weird things, and Stillman thinks he's weird, and he's like, this guy's off. All this other stuff, I don't remember him coming up with the SEALs. You go off. Stillman has a thing with Fat Man, who's the bomber for Dead Cell. He plants bombs all around one of the tiers of tiers of the big shell that you can get to because you can't get to the rest of them. After that, you have to get the freezing gun, if I remember right.
You have to go destroy all the bombs. You have to disable them so that way they don't blow up and destroy everything.
Yeah.
Fat Man.
So Peter Stillman's Fat Man is Peter Stillman's protege, whatever. They have a thing. After you get the freezing gun and you have to, disable all the bombs, Stillman goes and puts out one in the Shell 2 place, and it explodes, killing him because he sacrifices himself. So Stillman's dead. The only person helping you now is Pliskin. So you have to fight Fat Man on top of the one shell, which is an interesting fight because he's a fat dude who has rollerblades and a bomb outfit.
Mm-hmm.
That's
a bomb defusal outfit.
Right. Bomb defusal outfit, which is a lot of fun.
It's a weird fight. It's a really weird fight. And then when he dies, he plants a bomb underneath him. You have to move him out of the way to disable the last bomb. That sucks. That's weird.
Because if you don't realize he's on top of it, like I know people who search for it, and they're like, I don't know where this last bomb is.
Yeah.
One thing we did miss was that one of the people helping is, of course, Ocelot, and Olga does not know that Ocelot killed her father. She blames Solid Snake.
Mm-hmm.
So after Stillman dies, Raiden continues to search for the president. He begins to doubt that Pliskin is, of course, who he says he is.
Mm-hmm.
They go to make a play to get across to one of the other shells, and when they do, that's when they get attacked by the Harrier. The Harrier pilot then claims to be Solid Snake, and Pliskin yells out, that's not true, he's not Snake. You then have to fight the Harrier, which is...
Yeah, that fight is
not
one
fun.
of the...
So after you destroy the Harrier, Vamp comes up in the ray, grabbing it before it can crash land, taking it underwater, which is weird.
Everything about Vamp's weird, and it's only going to get weirder.
So... Then you have to find the president, who you do find. Well, first you find Otacon, who's helping you because he's a specialist who came in with the Navy SEALs for reasons. Oh wait, he's a bomb specialist.
Yeah, okay.
Which is weird.
Yeah, he's the same kind of specialist his father was. Sorry.
We'll get to that too.
Yeah, I'm getting way ahead of myself on that. Go ahead.
After you shoot down the Harrier, Pliskin does reveal himself to be the real Solid Snake.
Shock.
And why he is there to help locate the president. You finally contact the president, who then reveals what's really going on and that the facility is built on top of what is known as the Arsenal Gear, because bigger Metal Gears always make this game series better.
Looks like a turtle. It's a big turtle. Go ahead.
He then tells you that the presidency is a facade, that everything is controlled by a bunch of AIs.
Shadow government.
The powerful AI known as GW.
Yes,
George Washington. Right? Really? You didn't get that?
I did, but sorry.
No, it's all the AIs in Metal Gear Solid 4, off note, are all letters of the Founding Fathers.
Yeah.
So
they're called the Patriots. Yeah. Sorry, we're getting way ahead of ourselves.
Sorry. So yeah, he tells them this, that they control the digital age and all this other stuff, and as the president's talking, he dies of a heart attack.
Shocker.
He also reveals that the prior president, George Sears, who was the president during the first game, is actually another clone of Big Boss, known as Solidus Snake.
Yep.
Fun production note, he was originally actually going to be called Gaseous Snake.
Oh my god.
Gas Snake, but even Kojima said no.
I can't go that far. Can't go that far. Well, at least he wasn't called, Gelatin Snake? Plasma Snake. Plasma Snake actually would have worked.
Gelatin Snake. So Raiden goes to find Otacon's... that's right. Raiden goes to find Otacon's step-half's adoptive sister, Emma Emmerich.
So this is when they introduce Otacon's adopted sister,
weird family
Emma.
Dynamic that he used to bone his stepmother.
Yeah, it gets weird. Everything's weird. Do we have to stick on Emma for too long? Can I just jump to the part where she dies?
Yeah, because she does shortly after she shows up, doesn't she? So yeah, after you're trying to help her get across from the damaged thing because Peter Stillman sucked at his job, so you couldn't get her through that way and she's afraid of water. You're trying to walk her across the thing where you have to do a sniper fight. Mm-hmm. And while she's trying to get across, Vamp, like some weird... runs across water.
Of course he does.
And kills her by stabbing her when you shoot him.
Don't you shoot him in the head?
You shoot him a ton of times in this game.
Yeah, but one of the times you...
Yeah, you shoot him dead in the head in this one. Okay. This is when you shoot... you or Snake shoots him in the head.
Yeah, right in the forehead. But go ahead.
So she dies. Oh, and another thing we've completely forgot is... someone's been contacting you over, we forgot that during the first Metal Gear too, because it's kind of an important plot point.
What?
In the first Metal Gear, Metal Gear Solid, you got contacted by a person calling themselves Deep Throat.
Wasn't that just Gray Fox in the first game?
But then you get contacted by someone else in this game claiming to be Deep Throat as well. And that is, of course, the second Cyborg Ninja.
Which, can we just... it's Olga.
It turns out to be Olga, who at the time of the tanker level was pregnant, and her child was stolen from her by the Patriots, the people who are in control of everything.
The AI things. How does this make sense?
Right?
Okay.
We're making about as much sense out of this as... So after this, Raiden gets captured by Olga, who takes him, and he gets tortured by, of course, Ocelot, because apparently
that's what... tortured by Solidus.
He gets tortured by Bolt. Oh yeah, he does. He shocks him with the weird tentacle.
He strangles him with his tentacles.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
It's not as iconic of a scene.
And it's revealed that you actually knew the president, that he was the head of some former child soldier
thing, and you were known as Jack the Ripper and blah blah blah. Like, you were a child soldier in some country.
Liberian Civil War.
We're not trying to marginalize this. They just put so much...
There's so much into this game.
And it's out of nowhere. There's so many non sequiturs. This, I'm not going to get too ahead, but this might have been my least favorite out of any of them.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. Okay. So after you get loose, you get into the Arsenal gear, and the virus that Emma instilled is starting to take a hold of the...
So the computer
virus is starting to affect the AI. You learn that the Colonel Campbell who sent you on the mission isn't the real Colonel Campbell.
We didn't even touch the vamp fight, though, did we?
Which vamp fight?
Well, the fight where you fight him... The fight where you fight him above the super oxygenated water.
That's in
the Arsenal
gear.
Sorry.
So the virus is taking hold. You're naked as all hell.
Yeah, and then, like Brent had mentioned, you find out the Colonel Campbell you've been talking to the whole game is actually a AI representation.
So you're freaking out because you don't know if the other person helping, who is your girlfriend, who's told you over the course of the game that she's also expecting your child. You have no idea if she's real or not. You're having all these weird, profound... The Colonel is giving you weird nursery rhymes.
He starts naming Japanese subway stations.
He starts telling you things from previous games.
Yeah, it goes so off the rails near the end. Like, it gets so crazy. And they talk about how everything was really supposed to be a simulation to draw Solid Snake out of hiding or something. Like, you remember this?
Yeah.
Like, at the end, they try to say how everything...
It's also put in place to make Raiden into the next Solid Snake, this great soldier in people's minds. Anyways, you meet up with Snake, who gives you your gear back and gives you the sword from Olga because she was killed. Yeah, we did skip a few things. We did miss that fight, and Olga's killed.
I don't remember that. I remember fighting Vamp because it was dumb, because everything about Vamp is dumb. I don't remember Olga. I don't remember a lot of this game because this game seemed like they gave Kojima a lot of rope and he hung himself with it. Like this. Can we just... We haven't missed anything important. Like, if we have, we'll retouch on it. But at this point, you're at the end of the game. You're fighting Metal Gear Ray.
You fight several. I actually liked the fighting the Metal Gear Ray.
I thought it was so... For a game that's about tactical stealth, you're fighting lot of giant robots. It's ridiculous. And as a note, as you're on top of the Arsenal gear, I fell asleep. Do you remember this? I told you about how
first, hang on. So the Arsenal gear sets to launch, and it crashes into New York, which, production note, they had to cut out a lot of that because it came out shortly after 9/11.
And they could not show rampant destruction across New York.
Which there is actually, you can find the finished images where it's just destroyed downtown Manhattan.
So... I fell asleep while they were launching into New York, and they start talking about the nature of man and war, and it gets so brutally heavy-handed. Metal Gear Solid 1 wasn't great about... They got into a lot of philosophical nonsense.
Kojima's not a man who knows subtlety.
No. And the second one beat you to death with it. So... There was a point. There's two important details here. One, when I played it, I fell asleep at some point because when you're on the Arsenal gear and it launches into New York, you end up on top of what?
What is it called?
It's some important government-built historical
courthouse in downtown New York, I believe. Yeah.
So I woke up on top of the courthouse getting beat up by Solidus.
Yeah, you missed like a solid hour worth.
Right. And I don't feel like I missed anything. So, anyways, I sword fight with this guy on top of it.
We did miss a few important story beats. We missed the part where Ocelot reveals himself to actually be a member of the working for the Patriots.
That is
and he
important.
screws over Solidus, steals the ray, jumps off, and Solid Snake jumps off after him into the ocean.
That's it.
The other part is right before he steals the ray, the arm completely takes control of him and he becomes Liquid Ocelot.
Of course he does.
Yeah, so he goes completely off the balls, the wall, insane there. So then, yeah, back to where we were at, where you were talking.
So at this point, Liquid Ocelot has run away with the Metal Gear Ray, which is some big, weird, amphibious robot. Solid Snake has decided to pursue him. You are fighting one of the other clones of Big Boss Solidus Snake in a sword fight on top of the... I hate this, okay? This is so frustrating. The people love this game, and it was so dumb and ridiculous. You're having a sword fight. This is not awesome. This is idiotic. I hated this. It was the worst. In fact, the first time you beat it when I was around, we set it to record on your VCR so we could go eat dinner because we're like, this is going to be another 45 minutes. And the ending has to do with Jack reconnecting with Rose on the
streets of New York and Snake telling him what he needs to pass on to the next generation.
What?
The last important thing we need to note is that midway through the game, they discover some data that says they have the names of all the Patriots, which is 12 members. There is the ending credit scene where after the game ends, it's Otacon and Snake talking over the title scene, and they're like, we have all the names, but there's something weird. And Snake goes, what is it? All these guys have been dead for like 120 years.
Dun, 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 dun.
And then the game cuts.
What did this game do? Like, what did it...
Well, it didn't... Gameplay-wise, you got the first person...
Gameplay-wise, it was crazy solid. And
yeah.
I think they didn't even introduce the first-person shooting till Substance, did they?
No, this was it. Yeah,
okay.
It was in there. I never played Substance. So of all the side ones, I've never played Substance.
So a lot of these games had... expanded versions. MGS2 had MGS2 VR. Substance.
Yeah.
The first one had VR missions.
Second one had Subsistence. Third one had
Subsistence. So I thought the first person thing was introduced in Substance. According to Brent, I was wrong. The gameplay was solid. I just hated the story.
I like some of the characters.
Also, in case you feel like we forgot it, at one point you find out that Fortune actually couldn't deflect bullets.
Right. We forgot all about how she dies because the bullet you have, like they shut the device off on her.
She has a device that actually deflects bullets, so they just turn it off and she gets riddled with bullets.
Like her story is actually pretty sad.
Her story
her
is
husband
sad.
And everything else. And the Olga thing with her baby.
That is also sad.
Yeah. There are characters that are good, but some of the stuff was just
I hate
insane.
to marginalize so much of this, but this game to me, out of the Metal Gear Solid franchise, it is my least favorite. There's
things about it I like, but yeah, it's if you rate them, Metal Gear Solid 2 is the...
Honestly, I feel like they took Metal Gear Solid 1. It's basically Metal Gear Solid 1 again, except more ridiculous with people you didn't really like. I don't know anybody, because that's the point though. They said they were trying to redo the first one.
Yeah.
So, I'm not trying to be petty, but it feels like if they had had the technology to create one that way, that 2 is just one again with better technology, but they couldn't do the exact same game, so they made everything kind of terrible. Now, I'm hoping that somebody listens to this and they go, I love this game because of these. I want to hear why you love this game, because I did not like how they delivered the story. I did not like how they tried to get you to empathize with the characters.
For the amount of hate that the whole, Raiden's the person instead of Snake, like that never bothered me as much as it did everyone else. That part I was past. Like,
so I'm okay with him as a protagonist.
He's not the best protagonist.
But they tried to saddle him with so much unnecessary.
There was too much backstory all at once for him.
They slammed the backstory and they slammed the baggage in. It was kind of ridiculous.
Like, the beginning of the game is actually pretty solid.
You mean the part where he plays Snake?
Yeah.
Yeah. You see the problem there?
Oh, yeah, there's a problem there.
Okay.
There are things about it I like, but there are story elements that I could have done without.
It could have been... They needed to pace it better.
Yeah,
the pacing was
too much.
garbage.
But it was also... It is the beginning of when Metal Gear Solid became literally at times...
Parody.
Well, not a parody. Well, no, because the next game. But it became a interactive movie.
Oh, yeah, there were... And Kojima, bless his soul, he had a vision... And he never took the story seriously, which is why we shouldn't take it seriously.
And 2, I think, is the prime example of that.
Yeah, 2 was the worst
that,
offender.
Yeah.
Hands down. But is there anything else you want to touch on for 2?
No, nothing that I don't have pins in for us to come to later, like the Raiden thing, switching protagonists, and
okay.
Vamp. The Vamp stuff we'll come back to.
Because even though you did defeat Vamp in a fight...
He's not dead.
He's not dead. This is not a...
Actually, if you look in the camera angle at the last one, you can watch him get out.
Okay, so it's not really that much of a spoiler.
I don't think it's... Yeah,
it's not even a spoiler, because, he's back to fight another day. But is nothing else on this game?
Besides our review of it? I don't think so.
Okay, and we touched on the review. Okay, ready to move on?
Yeah.
In that case... I'm going to go ahead and say that this is the end of part 1 of our 3-part Metal Gear Solid approach. Brent, thank you for coming on today.
Yeah.
Don't forget to get on the socials. Tell us what you liked about the first Metal Gear games. Tell us what you liked about Metal Gear Solid 1. Please tell me what you liked about Metal Gear Solid 2. Look us up online, and until next time, this is Co-Opinions.